My sister got our parents' fancy restaurant while I was given the job of a dishwasher in it. Work your way up, they laughed. But when I became their competitor, they regretted it. Hey everyone, before we dive in, I have a quick favor to ask. If you enjoy content like this, please hit the subscribe button. It's free, supports the channel, and ensures you never miss out on amazing videos. Alright, let's get started. Hey Reddit, my name's Ethan Miller. I'm 26, and this is the story of how my own family betrayed me, then lived to regret it. For as long as I can remember, my family has owned Miller Steakhouse and Grill, a well-known American restaurant in our city. It's the kind of place where families come for birthdays, where business people take clients, and where locals go when they want a really good steak. And me, I loved cooking. Not just in a casual, oh, I like to make dinner sometimes way. I lived for it. I wasn't officially hired at the restaurant, but from the time I was a teenager, I spent every free moment in the kitchen. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. While my sister Olivia was out shopping or talking about her latest business ventures, which never lasted more than a few months, I was in the back, shadowing Chef Marco, our longtime head chef. He wasn't just some guy flipping burgers. Marco was an artist. He had trained in some of the best kitchens in the country before coming to work for my dad, and he saw something in me that my own parents never did. "Kid, you've got a real talent," he'd say, handing me a knife so I could practice my cuts. By 16, I could grill a perfect medium-rare steak just by touch. By 21, I knew every single recipe, every supplier, and every shortcut that made the kitchen run like a well-oiled machine. Did my parents care? No. To them, I was just playing around in the kitchen, while Olivia was the serious one, the responsible one, the future of the business. And then one night, they proved just how little they thought of me. Flashback. The night everything changed. It was a Sunday. We were all crammed around our small dining table, me, Mom, Dad, and Olivia. "We've made a decision about the future of Miller's," my dad announced, setting his fork down. I straightened up. My heart pounded. This was it. Finally, they were going to acknowledge all the hard work I'd put in. "We're handing the restaurant over to Olivia," Mom said with a proud smile. I stared at them. I actually laughed, thinking it was a joke. "Wait, what?" I looked over at Olivia, waiting for her to correct them. She didn't. Instead, she smirked. "I mean, it just makes sense. I have a degree in business." A degree she barely scraped through, by the way. Meanwhile, I'd been working extremely hard in that kitchen for over a decade. "Mom, Dad," I started, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've been working at Miller's since I was a kid. I know the menu better than anyone. I've trained under Marco. Olivia has never even worked a single shift in the kitchen." "Ethan, don't be ridiculous," Mom said, waving a hand like I was being dramatic. Dad sighed. "You're a great cook, son, but running a restaurant isn't just about food. Olivia understands branding, marketing, the bigger picture. She doesn't even know how to take a dinner order, let alone run a kitchen," I snapped. "That's why you'll still have a job," Mom said, like she was doing me a favor. I frowned. "What job?" Olivia leaned forward, a slow grin spreading across her face. "Oh, this is the best part. You'll be starting as a dishwasher and working your way up." Silence. I looked at my parents, waiting for them to correct her. They didn't. They just nodded like this was reasonable, like I should be grateful. "You'll learn discipline this way," Dad added. "Hard work builds character." And Olivia, she was laughing uncontrollably. "Come on, Ethan," she said, wiping a fake tear from her eye. "You always said you loved being in the kitchen. Well, now you get to spend all your time there." I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. They really thought I was nothing but the help. I took a slow breath, forcing a smile. "Thank you," I said. "I'll make the most of it." And I would, just not in the way they expected. Back to the present. That was 2 years ago. 2 years of Olivia running Miller's into the ground, messing up orders, firing good staff, raising prices while shrinking portions, and driving away the regulars who had kept us in business for decades. 2 years of my parents still pretending she was some kind of genius, while I scrubbed dishes in the back. What they didn't know, I had a plan. And the day I walked out of that kitchen for good was the day I started building something that would make them regret every single decision they made. So Reddit, you wanted to hear what happened next? Buckle up, because this is where things start getting really good. The reality of working my way up. After that dinner, I convinced myself to stay at Miller's Steakhouse, just to see how bad things would get under Olivia. Spoiler alert, it was a disaster. The first week alone, she fired 2 of our best servers because they didn't respect her authority. By the end of the month, she had switched to a cheaper meat supplier, jacked up the prices, and pissed off Marco so much that he almost walked out. And me? I was scrubbing dishes, pretending like I wasn't watching the entire ship sink in real time. One night, as I was elbow-deep in greasy water, Marco stormed into the dish pit, his chef's coat unbuttoned and his face red. "Ethan, I can't do this anymore," he muttered, running a hand through his graying hair. "She just told me we're switching from fresh-cut fries to frozen." "Frozen? What's next? Microwaved steaks?" I sighed, wiping my hands on my apron. "You really think she's going to stop there?" Marco gave me a long look. Then after a moment, he pulled a cigarette from his pocket and motioned for me to follow him outside. Out behind the kitchen, he lit up, taking a deep drag. "I don't know how much longer I can do this, kid. This place used to mean something. Your grandfather built it from nothing. Your dad at least kept it steady. But Olivia? He scoffed. She's gutting it. I nodded. I'd seen it firsthand. The regulars weren't coming in as much. Online reviews were tanking, and the kitchen staff, they hated her. She doesn't care about the food, I said quietly. Marco exhaled a cloud of smoke. No, and your parents are too blind to see what's happening. He was right. My parents refused to admit that Olivia had no clue what she was doing. They kept defending her, saying she just needed time to adjust. Meanwhile, the restaurant was bleeding money. And that's when I made my decision. I was done being the family joke. It was time to start planning my next move. The breaking point, things got worse. Fast. One night, a group of VIPs, big-shot real estate guys who had been coming to Miller's for years, walked in and ordered steaks, the usual. Problem? Olivia, in her infinite wisdom, had switched to a cheaper butcher without telling Marco. So when their steaks came out, overcooked, chewy, and straight-up embarrassing, I was in the back washing dishes when I heard yelling from the dining room. I grabbed a towel and peeked through the kitchen doors just in time to see one of the VIPs, some guy in a designer suit, holding up his plate like it was a piece of garbage. "What is this?" he barked. Olivia was standing there, fake smile plastered on her face. "Oh, sir, I assure you," he snapped, cutting her off. "We've been eating here for 15 years. Your father ran a great place. But this..." He shoved the plate toward her. "This is terrible food. Oof." The whole restaurant went silent. Olivia's face turned beet red. She opened her mouth to say something, probably to blame Marco, but the VIP guy didn't care. He threw his napkin down, waved his buddies toward the door, and muttered, just loud enough for everyone to hear, "We'll take our business somewhere else." And just like that, Miller's lost some of its best customers. You have no future here. That night after we closed, Olivia called a staff meeting, which really meant she wanted to yell at everyone and act like it wasn't her fault. We all stood around the kitchen while she paced in front of us, arms crossed. "I don't know what's going on with you all," she snapped, "but the food has been inconsistent, service is sloppy, and customers are complaining." Marco chuckled under his breath. "Maybe because you fired half the staff and started cutting corners." Olivia glared at him. "If you can't handle the changes, Marco, no one's forcing you to stay." That shut him up. Then she turned to me. "And you," she said, jabbing a finger in my direction, "I know you think you're some kind of hotshot chef just because Marco let you play around in the kitchen. But let's get one thing straight. You're a dishwasher. That's all you are. That's all you'll ever be." The whole room went silent. I felt something snap inside me. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even surprised. I just saw her for what she really was, someone who was terrified that I might actually be better than her. I took a step forward, wiping my hands on my apron. "You really think that, huh?" I said quietly. She smirked. "I know that." I nodded, tossing my apron onto the counter. "All right then." And with that, I walked out. I heard Marco call after me, but I didn't stop. I just kept walking. I had wasted enough time in that place. It was time to start working on something better. What happens next? That was the night I walked away from Miller's for good. And what Olivia didn't know, I had already been planning my next move for months. The connections I made in the kitchen, they weren't just friends, they were my future staff. The secret recipes I'd been perfecting, they were about to make me famous. And the customers Olivia was losing, I knew exactly where they'd be eating soon. Because I wasn't just walking away from Miller's. I was about to become its biggest competitor. To be continued. So Reddit, you want to hear how I built a restaurant that made my family regret ever underestimating me? Because trust me, this is where it gets really good. All right, Reddit, you've been waiting for this. This is the part where Olivia finally realizes she made the worst mistake of her life. The night Ethan's Prime opened, it was everything I had dreamed of. The kitchen was buzzing, the servers were on point, and the food, perfection. Then Olivia walked in, and that's when things got really interesting. The standoff at Ethan's Prime. I was in the kitchen plating a tomahawk steak when Jesse, my bartender, nudged me. "Dude," he said, nodding toward the entrance. "Look who just walked in." I wiped my hands on my apron and glanced up, and there she was, Olivia, standing at the hostess stand, looking like she had just seen a ghost. Her arms were crossed, her jaw tight, but her eyes pure panic. Because she knew. She knew this place was packed. She knew half the faces in the crowd were former Miller's customers, and she knew that for the first time in her life, she wasn't in control. The VIP made it worse. Before she could say anything, a familiar voice rang out across the restaurant. "Ethan, my man!" I turned just in time to see Mr. Langford, one of Miller's longtime VIP regulars. The same guy who had walked out in the middle of his meal a few months ago, except this time, he wasn't angry. He was grinning. "You outdid yourself, kid," he said, holding up his glass. "This ribeye, best I've had in years." The entire restaurant turned to look. Olivia's face went pale. That's when I knew I had won the confrontation. I walked over to Olivia, wiping my hands on my apron. "Welcome to Ethan's Prime," I said, my voice light. "Table for one?" Her nostrils flared. "What do you think you're doing?" I raised an eyebrow. Running a successful restaurant. You should try it sometime." She took a sharp breath. "You stole my staff." "No," I corrected. "You fired them, or made their lives miserable enough that they quit. I just gave them a place where they're actually valued." She looked around the restaurant, her eyes darting from table to table. "This is ridiculous," she muttered. "You think you can actually compete with Miller's?" I smirked. Compete, Olivia? I'm not competing. I'm winning, she scoffed. This place is just a fad. People will get bored. They'll come back to Miller's. Just as she said that, one of my servers walked by carrying a sizzling porterhouse. A couple at the next table turned and stared at it like it was the most beautiful thing they'd ever seen. I tilted my head. Yeah, I don't think so. Olivia's hands curled into fists. Mom and Dad are going to hear about this. I grinned. Oh, I'm counting on it. She stormed out, pushing past customers as she went. And me? I just went back to the kitchen. I had a restaurant to run. The fallout. The next morning, my phone started blowing up. First my mom, then my dad, then Olivia. Again and again and again. I ignored every single call. Then Jesse texted me. Jesse, dude, check Miller's Yelp page. I opened it up, and oh, it was bad. Customers were trashing them. Complaints about undercooked steaks, slow service, overpriced drinks. And the worst one, went to Miller's for my anniversary, but the place was half empty. Then I found out why. Everyone's eating at Ethan's prime. I actually laughed out loud. It wasn't just a few bad reviews, it was an avalanche. Miller's wasn't just losing business, it was hemorrhaging customers. And Olivia, she knew it. The desperate call that afternoon I finally picked up when my dad called. Ethan, he started, his voice tight. We need to talk. Do we? I said, leaning back in my chair. Cut the attitude, he snapped. Your mother is upset. Olivia is upset. We need to figure out how to fix this. Fix what? I asked, feigning innocence. You know exactly what, he growled. Miller's is struggling and you're stealing our customers. I'm not stealing anything, I said calmly. People are choosing to eat here instead of at Miller's. Maybe you should ask yourselves why. Silence. Then he sighed. Come home, let's talk this out. I smirked. Dad, I'm already home. Ethan's prime is my home now. Click. I hung up. The beginning of the end for Miller's. That week, Miller's ran a desperate promo. 50% off all steaks, trying to win back customers. It backfired. People went in, saw the place half empty, ate their mediocre steaks, and never came back. Meanwhile, at Ethan's prime, we were booked solid for the next 3 months. And that's when I knew it was only a matter of time before Miller's Steakhouse collapsed. The final chapter. All right, read it. This is it. The final chapter. The part where my parents finally realized they had made the biggest mistake of their lives. By the time Miller's Steakhouse hit rock bottom, Ethan's prime was thriving. We were booked solid for months. People were raving about our steaks, our service, our atmosphere. Meanwhile, Olivia was drowning. And then one evening, just as I was prepping for another packed night, guess who walked into my restaurant? My parents. And let me tell you, they did not look happy. The plea for help. I spotted them the moment they walked in. My dad's face was tight, my mom's lips pressed into a thin line. They stood at the entrance, looking completely out of place. I took my time walking over, letting them soak in the success they never believed I was capable of. Table for two? I asked, my voice calm. My dad exhaled sharply. Ethan, we need to talk. I raised an eyebrow. You can talk while you eat. I hear the filet mignon is excellent. My mom crossed her arms. Don't be difficult, Ethan. I smirked. Oh, I'm just following the family motto, Mom. Work your way up. Her face flushed. I led them to a table near the back where we wouldn't be disturbed. The moment they sat down, my dad leaned forward. Miller's is in trouble. I pretended to look surprised. Really? I hadn't noticed. He gritted his teeth. We don't need sarcasm right now. I leaned back, crossing my arms. Then what do you need? Mom was playing with her napkin. We want you to come back, Ethan. For a second I almost laughed. They wanted me to come back, after everything. Why? I asked. Dad cleared his throat. We need someone who understands the kitchen, someone who can bring back the quality people expect. I tilted my head. What about Olivia? I thought she was the future of the business. Mom flinched. Dad sighed. She's struggling. Struggling. She had been given a successful restaurant on a silver platter, and she still managed to ruin it. So let me get this straight, I said slowly. You pushed me aside, gave my job to Olivia, told me I was nothing more than a dishwasher. And now, when you've completely run Miller's into the ground, now you want my help? Neither of them answered. I let the silence stretch out, watching them squirm. Then I dropped the final blow. Miller's isn't struggling, it's dying. Mom's eyes widened, Dad's jaw tightened. And you know what the worst part is? I leaned in, lowering my voice. This didn't have to happen. You chose this. The offer they couldn't refuse. They sat there speechless. They knew I was right. Finally, Dad sighed. Ethan, what do you want? I pretended to think about it. Then I slid a piece of paper across the table. I'll save Miller's, I said, on one condition. Dad picked up the paper. His eyes scanned the words. His face went pale. You want to buy Miller's? Mom gasped. For dirt cheap, I confirmed. Let's be honest, you're desperate. If you don't sell to me, you'll have to sell to someone else, and they won't be nearly as generous. Dad clenched his jaw. Ethan, this is our family's legacy. No, I corrected. It was your legacy. You threw it away when you chose Olivia over me. Mom shook her head. But Ethan, we built that place, and I built this one, I interrupted. Without you. Silence. I let them sit with that truth for a moment. Then Dad exhaled. He looked at my mom, then back at me. We'll think about it, I smirked. Take your time, but I'd act fast before there's nothing left to sell. And with that, I walked away. The final nail in the coffin. 2 weeks later, I got a call. Dad's voice was quiet. It's yours. I hung up and smiled. Miller's Steakhouse now belonged to me. But I wasn't planning to save it. I was going to remake it, reinvent it. and most importantly, erase their name from it forever. The grand reopening. 6 months later, after a full renovation, the restaurant that once was Miller's Steakhouse had a brand new sign above the door, Prime by Ethan Miller. No more Millers. No more family name attached to my success. The night we reopened, the restaurant was packed. And the best part? I spotted Olivia standing outside, staring up at the sign. I walked out, crossing my arms. You lost? Or are you here for a reservation? She turned to me, her face unreadable. I don't get it, she said. You had everything you wanted with Ethan's Prime. Why take Miller's too? I smiled, because it was never about taking it. It was about proving I was always meant to run it. She swallowed hard. For the first time in her life, Olivia had nothing to say. And that was the sweetest victory of all. Epilogue. 1 year later. It's been a year since I took over. Ethan's Prime is still thriving. Prime by Ethan Miller is one of the hottest restaurants in the city. And Miller's Steakhouse? A distant memory. My parents? They moved to Florida, quietly fading into the background. Olivia? She tried to start a consulting business, but let's just say no one's exactly lining up for her advice. And me? I finally have what I always wanted. Not just a restaurant, not just success. I have respect, I have the last laugh, and let me tell you, Reddit, it tastes better than any steak I've ever made. And that, my friends, is how I went from dishwasher to restaurant owner, while my family watched their